In this Circuits of the Past video, we'll dive into the history of the Crystal Palace Circuit. The Crystal Palace Circuit was a racing track located in Crystal Palace Park in London, England. The name Crystal Palace comes from a cast iron and plate-glass structure exposition centre which was built for the 1851 Great Exhibition. Its original location was actually in Hyde Park, but in 1878 it was relocated to a new park in southern London, which was named Crystal Palace Park. In November of 1936, the Crystal Palace was destroyed by fire. The building was never rebuilt, but the ruin is still part of the Crystal Palace Park. The Crystal Palace Circuit itself, though, opened back in May 21st of 1927, with a race for motorcycles to begin with. The 1-mile track made use of existing roads winding through the park. The bends were covered with an asphalt layer, whilst the straights themselves were pure and simple gravel roads. In December of 1936, shortly after the fire that destroyed the Crystal Palace, they started with improvement works to the circuit. The layout was extended to 2 miles and the entire track would become asphalt layered. On July the 17th of 1937, the first ever London Grand Prix was held at the improved Crystal Palace track. The race was won by Prince Beira from Siam, who would also go on to win the first ever Dutch Grand Prix at the Dutch circuit of Zandvoort in 1948. The Crystal Palace Circuit also hosted the first ever race event that was covered by the BBC. That itself was the 1937 International Imperial Trophy, which incidentally was also won by Prince Beira. Interestingly, Baird Television Company used to also occupy one of the towers that was attached to the old Crystal Palace complex, so media was clearly in the site's heritage. After World War II, racing continued at Crystal Palace in 1953. The loop on the infield section was bypassed, which reduced the length of the circuit to 1.39 miles. As usual though, especially on this website, local residents became a factor for the circuit's downfall. Complaints came in from the locals about the noise, and that meant that the number of racing events held at the venue had to be reduced to only 5 per year in the 1950s. In 1960, the start-finish was moved from the Stadium Straight to the Terrace Straight in front of the Crystal Palace ruin. The Crystal Palace Circuit hosted races for sports cars, saloon cars, Formula 3, Formula 2 and non-championship Formula 1 races. In 1970, another limit was imposed. The venue could only hold races for just 14 days per year, and when safety became an issue in the early 1970s, the Crystal Palace Circuit was criticised for being too dangerous. Improvements were made, but the track was found no longer suitable for most race series after the 1972 season. Crystal Palace continued to be used for club events, but after the 1974 season, it was forced to close forever. That is until, in 1997, when a part of the old Crystal Palace Circuit was used for an annual sprint race. These were held in May. Unfortunately, the 2020 event was cancelled because of the current COVID-19 crisis. Today, most of the track is still there. A part of it is used as an access road for the Crystal Palace National Sports Centre, whilst another part has been narrowed and is now only open for pedestrians and cyclists. The old Crystal Palace Circuit also played a role in the 2013 movie Rush, about the 1976 Formula 1 season and the battle between Niki Lauda and James Hunt. They used the Crystal Palace ruin as a background for some of the scenes, but the actual action on track was filmed at Cadwell Park. In 2018, Herman visited Crystal Palace and walked around the old layouts, as far as you possibly can at least anyway, and he did that together with Nick, a fan from Circuits of the Past.
Stone or glass?
I don't think that's a remain of the track.
So that's the history of the Crystal Palace circuit. If you want to know more about bygone racing circuits, please do visit the website www.circuitsofthepast.com. There you can also download a free ebook about 7 abandoned racetracks that you can visit legally. For now, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell so that you don't miss the next video from another racing Circuit of the Past.